would be fun, just for fun, to be in a longer. And there it is! Ball drive! Deep to left! Hockey has it! Takes it to second and short! This incredible season has another chapter to it! And now they've got a call between third and home. The ball gets away! Into score Rosarena! The Rays have won! There's your Dan Johnson moment! Oh my!
And welcome everybody to another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, presented to you by the Believe Podcast Network and also in association with Channel Side Sports. I am one of your hosts, Evan, the Great Old Bushman, and joining me as usual is my co-host Drew. Drew, where do we start this show? Because it's been nothing but a frustration weekend for this team and I think for all the fans this past weekend against the Orioles, which the Rays dropped 3 out of 4, including today's afternoon matchup. Where do we begin, my friend? And I know you have a lot to air out, and so do I.
The whole day I've been feeling very negative.
Yeah.
Really the whole weekend. Very pessimistic, but my attitude has changed. Not so much my outlook for the team at the moment, but
yeah,
why not start a little on the optimistic side, or at least on the positive side? Why don't we start with the starting pitching? Because the starting pitching honestly did pretty great. I mean, I know Shane. It was surprising for Shane McClanahan to have the worst outing of the bunch. You kind of thought, I mean, I know going in, especially after the Rays lost the first game, thinking, okay, if we can win Zach Eflin's start, then okay, we got a great shot of going up 2-1 in the series, and then maybe getting a 3 out of 4, or at worst splitting with Shane going on Saturday and getting that win. So I was just really impressed with the starting pitching. I think if there's anything that's helped me get off the ledge, or to climb down from the ledge, I should say, it's the starting pitching. Zach Eflin goes, 7 innings, shutout,
7 strong innings, and I was at that game on Friday, and he is a dog, and
he's great, man. He's great.
I know he had the hiccup his last start against Kansas City, but the one on the Friday night's game, he looks so locked in.
Yep.
And I think if it wasn't, he's almost become like the linchpin of that rotation. I think he's only really had one bad start, which was the Kansas City one. Other than that, he's been really great on the mound. And for the offensive production, and let's be clear here. Look, they didn't get killed the games they lost this week.
No,
they only lost by 1 run. So it wasn't like we were getting destroyed. It was just the offensive production has just been cold ever since the All-Star break, which, you could put in superstitious stuff. You could put in tiredness. You can put in injuries. You can put in all kinds of variables about what's going on with the offense. But the offense has just been lackadaisical and just lack thereof. I mean, 3 runs. Yeah, 3 runs with strong pitching is going to win you games, but when you have, strong pitching by the Orioles, which they had strong pitching too this past weekend, especially today, and if you're only scoring, 3-4 runs, you're not going to win many ball games. If your bullpen's, giving up late inning runs, and you're playing shitty in the field, you're just not going to get it. And I don't know what they need. I wouldn't say I'm at a loss for words, Drew, because look, nothing to take away from Baltimore. Baltimore is a great team. They are a team that's finally now not the laughingstock of the AL East. So let's not take that away from them. The Rays, on the other hand, I think we kind of talked about this before in previous episodes, where every team is going to have ebbs and flows. Every team is going to have their ups and downs. Every team is going to have that losing streak, or that period where they're just, on a free fall or whatever. Now we've entered into that zone with the Rays, and obviously there's 10 weeks left. They're 4-14 in July, which isn't Yeah, it's pretty bad, which isn't the worst July in team history. I know back in 2003, they went like 5-24 or something like that. So they're on pace to maybe be the worst. But, it's whatever this team needs to do. I mean, they obviously have a nice rest before Miami comes into town for 2, which, if Miami's coming to town, that should be like a 2-game sweep right there and get your confidence level back. And then you have to go away. And I think you play 3 against the Astros, and then you're playing New York. So you have a big road trip coming up after the 2-game series against Miami,
Right.
against a tough Houston team, and against I would say a really bad Yankees team. But the Yankees and the Rays always go at it.
Yeah,
so
and it's in the Bronx too.
Yeah,
so
it's in the Bronx.
that's...
Yeah. So I want to hit your side of how did we get here? What do they need going forward?
Mhm.
And I'm at this point, to be honest with you, man, if they don't do any big time blockbuster moves at the deadline, then you're not going to stay in it. Because I think they just need to go all in and make the moves. And I know Neander said they've got full, ownership back up from them. Bob Nightingale came out with a tweet saying that the Rays are going to be the most aggressive at the deadline, but a lot of things Bob Nightingale says aren't really that true, but you never
Right.
know. So I want your side of this, man. I'm kind of just at the point. It's like, if you're going to do something now, because you're on a slope that's starting to trend keep going down, and like Toronto's creeping back up. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So, to cap off the pitching was great this weekend. Shane, the 4th inning this whole weekend was the worst inning. I felt like if we could have just gone from the 3rd to the 5th inning, I think we sweep the Orioles probably. But yeah, and I was even encouraged by Taj Bradley, the way he responded after a rough, couple innings to start. I felt like he settled in, and he he's gonna be really good. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And if I remember correctly, him coming into the year, they were concerned he would kind of get on these bouts of wildness. His control wasn't. If I'm remembering correctly, that there was talk about he's gets a little wild. The control's not always there. It's kind of like a stereotypical thing where he's got great stuff. He's working on another pitch, but he's got great stuff. But it's just a matter of him controlling it. Well,
right.
He's hardly. I mean, I don't even know if he's walked 20. I don't know how I have to look it up how many guys he's walked this year, but his K strikeout to walk ratio is looks really strong. And he's approaching 100 strikeouts for the year. And Shane's going to bounce back. I'm not worried about that. It is always deflating when he's the one that makes it difficult for the team to win. Because you just kind of can't. You can't be like, oh, there's Brandon Lau again, or there's this is a reason why they need it's not a guy that you typically can fall. Like it's just hard. It's just really deflating because you feel so confident going into games that he starts that.
Yeah, because he's your ace. He's your ace.
Yeah,
you should expect
for the way that they did that with 2 outs, getting I think 5 runs on 2 outs was really deflating. So as far as how we got here and where things are headed, yeah, I mean, it's tough because I would say the biggest thing that I've had to reckon with this weekend is my expectations. So, and this might just be a learning experience for me as a fan, especially for a team like the Rays, and I've been a fan of the Rays for, 15, 16 years now. I want to say it was like 2006, 2007, maybe, when I really started tuning into them. But after that strong start, the 13-0, and even in the whole month of April, I think they were 24-6 to finish April. Even with that terrible White Sox loss in Chicago to end the month of April, oh man, that was frustrating. Really, even though they never had it was never a Braves game and Braves lead like the Braves do in the division, right? They're like 10.5 up on the next team. It never got that far. So it was never like I was comfortable in the sense that I I thought the Rays were just going to cakewalk to the division,
Right.
especially with the talent level in the division. But I just, from really May on, especially as we got into June, I mean, I've just really had in my mind that they were going to win the division. I mean, I've had in my mind, yeah, it's up, you hear it all the time, ups and downs, and it's going to be, low points of the season. Obviously, they weren't going to be on the same pace that they were at the beginning of the year. The offense wasn't going to be as hot as they were to start, for the first, 2 months or whatever. And but I just have had in my mind that they're going to be winning the division. Probably, if things got bad, they wouldn't be number one in the league. They might be number two. The Rangers stay hot, catch them, or I don't know. The Houston Astros do what they do, and they end up winning close to 100 games. I don't know. I thought if it got bad, it would be maybe a close division race, and then they would still pull away, and at worst be a 2 seed in the league. Still with that bye. And I'll tell you what, and then coming into this weekend with the Orioles, obviously with it being a virtual tie before the series started, I really didn't think the Orioles would come in and win 3 of 4. I was nervous. I mean, they were trending in different directions. One team definitely felt a lot more on the upward trajectory, and one team was going down. And we kind of we all know which teams fill those roles. I still thought at worst it would be a split, just with the matchups we had for the pitching. I mean, we threw our 4 best pitchers, and they all 4 did pretty good. I mean, Shane had a stinker of a game for him, but and all 4 were close games, but they won 3 of them. They won 3-4. And so, I mean, I walk away from this weekend feeling like, okay, I was so I've not been this frustrated with the Rays team in so long. And I feel so bad about it because like they've been so good all year. They're 61 win and 61 and 42 or something. And this is one of the better Rays teams that we've ever had, record wise at this point in the year. And, it's not coming easy right now. Maybe not as easy as like that 2021 team had it, especially in the second half, as things really gelled together for them. But I feel bad about being so frustrated. I mean, I've been tempted. I haven't done it yet, but I've been tempted to turn the game off at times this weekend, just out of frustration. I did a little bit on Thursday.
Do you think is the frustration coming from because we had such the hot start and the Rays were like the talk of the town for the first few months of the season, and now I'm at the point where if a slide is happening where they slide where it could happen, they could slide in the third. It's almost like, all right, well, heads are going to roll if this is going to be like the epic collapse that I'm hoping it's not going to be. You know what I mean?
Right. It's definitely the expectation, and that's what I was saying. Like part of it is I've just had this expectation of this team, and and listen, there is still July.
Right.
We'll hear it, I'm sure, from sports media, from 95.3, and from other Rays prognosticators out there, that it's just July. They're not this bad. They weren't as good as the first 2 months. They're things are going to even out. Whatever.
Drew,
all the analytics.
I was already hearing it today on the after show.
Yeah,
the post game show with the new guy, where he was saying, "Hey, it's July. There's 10 weeks left.
I know.
No need to panic."
And all of that's true. I feel like it's still very much possible that this team, I mean, if you look at the Orioles schedule, they play Philly, they play New York. I think they played, you said that, I think when we last talked,
they played Toronto. They played Toronto for 4. So yeah.
Yeah. They don't have an easy schedule, and, they're playing a bunch of teams that can score runs. Maybe not the Yankees right now, but, and so it's very possible, the Orioles come out and go and struggle. They go 5-5 in their next 10, or 4-6 or something. And, the Rays could, get something rolling here against the Marlins, hopefully. And then, squeak out a couple series wins against Houston and New York. And hey, we're a game or 2 up, after that road trip. I don't know. There's plenty of time for all that to happen, and they certainly can still win the division. It's just the expectations that it was a wild card team. A lot of people thought it was a wild card team to start the year, and they got off to such a great start, and it was like, oh, hey, this team, I mean, this is a
Yeah.
Rays team that can hit, I
Yeah.
mean, that's all the Rays always just have to be above average in offense, and then they're set, and they were the best. And so it's just gone from division winner and top team in the AL and, World Series favorite right there with the Braves and best team in baseball for the last, 2.5 months. Now it just feels like they're a shell of themselves. And so I just, that frustration really comes from where I've had this team, and now having to reckon with the fact that they might not be the best team in their own division, and that this Orioles team
is legit,
is really good. And all credit to them. So yeah, it was a really frustrating weekend to watch. I have some specific thoughts.
My main concern is this July has been brutal because you've been playing teams that are playoff caliber teams, like Atlanta and Philly and Texas and Baltimore, and you've only won 4 games out of those series against teams that are playoff contender teams. So
Right.
if you're only winning 4 games out of this month so far against teams that are probably headed to the playoffs, that's a concern for me because, well, then that means you're probably going to be a one and done in like the division series or whatever. If you make the division, like if the slide continues, then you're going to be in the wild card game and you might get bounced in the wild card series. So that's my main concern is, okay, well, if you're struggling against these really good teams, then how are you going to fare if you make the playoffs? Because right now, just the bats have gone so cold. What happened to the offense, and to me, maybe this is my opinion, of course, the team seems very different from it was a couple months ago. Like it doesn't seem like the fun raise we saw the first couple of months. Does that? I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it just doesn't seem like the team is having fun. No, obviously, because you're losing, you're not having fun, but just the fire is not there. The funness from this team doesn't seem to be there anymore. And I'm getting annoyed with Kevin Cash's responses when he has interviews. They seem so canned responses about things and so robotic.
Yeah, that's
and I know that's his shtick, but it's just like, dude, show someone a little of emotion. Maybe obviously maybe we're not supposed to see that because those are these post-game interviews. But what needs to need to happen is they need to have like a team meeting. Whoever's going to step it up as a captain needs to step up and be like, we need to have a team meeting to get whatever is out there because this team doesn't seem like they're having fun playing baseball. And that's why I think, look, I agree with you too. We're in July. There's still a lot of baseball left. You have all of August, and then you have September. You still have the rest of this month too. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the trade deadline. But I have this feeling in the back of my mind is they're just going to make little ticky-tack trades, and that's that. They're not going to try and go all in and get, the big name players that a lot of Rays fans think we should go get. Like, hey, we've got the prospects. Let's just go and do it and see what happens.
Right. They definitely don't. I mean, and it's easy to have fun when you're crushing the ball.
Right.
I feel like things kind of shifted when Wander's suspension happened, even though I thought that was a good move to kind of, obviously put Wander in his place a little bit and obviously send a message.
I said that too. Somebody tweeted out like, they're like, "Oh, what's wrong with this team?" I'm like, the bad juju happened when they benched him.
When was that? That was against the Royals.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have Fangraphs up right now. So that's the 23rd of June was when that came out. So let's just see. 23rd.
Telling you, man, like baseball superstition is there. And when you do something like that to maybe mess up the juju of the team, maybe that messed up the juju of the team. And he hasn't been hitting good either.
No, he's been terrible.
He's been lackluster, man.
Yeah, since June 23rd, June 22nd, excuse me, because the Rays played a 4-gamer against Kansas City, and I think we
split that.
Yeah, it was his debut.
Yeah, it was the anniversary of the
so the 22nd, because I was there. That was like one of my favorite games ever. So I remember that day. The 22nd. Yeah, the Rays are 24th in weighted runs. Oh, excuse me, I was on weighted runs created. Weighted runs created plus, they are 21st in the league. No, I mean no other team. Milwaukee is the next closest playoff team right now. If the season ended today at 19, but yeah, they're hitting 95, a weighted runs created plus of 95. So they're 5% below league average.
So Drew, we've got a comment from Twitter. It's from Matt Germain. He said the reason why the team is the way they are is because of the beef with Wander and Randy. And he says Wander was benched end of June. Reports of a feud between him and Randy came out sooner thereafter. Their July stats before today: Wander Franco batting 194, Randy Rosarina batting 200. However, the Rays tried to address it; it didn't work.
You know, I saw an interview around the All-Star break that was with a Spanish news station or Spanish. It was a Spanish interview, and it was Wander being interviewed, and he talked about it was a clip. It wasn't a full-on interview that I saw, but it was a clip.
Yeah,
and he mentions Randy about how they were at odds, but that they've worked everything out and everything's great. And I know Randy has said things as well, about how, they're brothers and everything's good now, and we've seen similar issues in the past with Randy or in Yandy. That might have been I think that was a wives issue. I can't quite remember. Some drama there, and we've seen other issues like that. I don't want to say that that's the reason why they're not having fun, but obviously like that just got this kind of slide started where all of a sudden the offense is just not clicking. You mentioned Wander and Randy are not hitting at all. July's been terrible. I mean, Wander, if I have to see, I mean, really from the team overall, if I have to see another pulled ground ball to second or first base, I'm going to claw my eyes out, because that is what I see. I feel like 75% of the outs are just pulled ground balls, and I don't know enough about hitting to know what the issues are. I don't know what's changed, and obviously they keep saying, as a team, their approach and the way they're doing things is the exact same. They're showing up, doing the same, putting in the same work, that they did at the beginning of the year. That's just what hitting is. It's just not happening for us right now. It's going to turn around, and could be very well true. But there's just
there's no fire.
There's no fire. And I know they bounced back in a couple of these games. They fought back today. They fought back yesterday, down 5-0. But they just cannot get the big hits. And like today did they only have one hit? Did they finish the game with one hit today? I know that Yandy's home run was the first hit.
They had one hit, which was Yandy's hit, and they were being no hit until up to that point. And the other thing that also too is they had eight runners left on base too. Runners in scoring, like runners on base, have been an issue with them all year long. They had 8 stranded today, and they had a bunch of walks in the 4th or 5th inning too. They had like 6 walks, and like they could only get 3 runs. There's no fire in this team. There's no fire. Like Friday night was good, and by the way, the Wander Franco bats are really awesome. They're like full size bats, and everybody got one on their way out of the game. It was really nuts. Like you have a bunch of it's $5 Budweiser, Bud Light night on Fridays, and you're handing out full size bats to everybody. So it was kind of funny seeing people just walk around with bats. I thought it was like the scene out of the Warriors. That probably predates a lot of people watching this, but like the Warriors were, people walking around with bats. Just I was waiting for something to happen, but thankfully nothing did. But Friday night's game was good. It seemed like a regular, Rays win, just because Zach Eflin was dealing, and he was, and I thought, listen, I really thought they were going to leave him in and maybe do a complete game, but obviously they brought in 2 relievers to close it out, but just, they had 2 home runs during that game, but it just seems like the power's not there like it used to be. I don't know, man. It's hard to figure out what is going on. And I think at just this point, and I've been, reading a lot of stuff on social media today and throughout the weekend. It's just like, shake it up, man. Go make the big moves. and let's just get back to the winning ways. I'm at
Yeah.
that point too, to be honest with
Yeah. One thing specifically, so how we got here, you mentioned runners in scoring position. I don't do a great job of there are people out there, baseball writers, online personalities, whatever, that cover baseball, cover the Rays, that do a lot better work with that understand the metrics or the analytics a lot better than I do. Outside, and I'm talking like outside of the most advanced I can get is like weighted runs created plus or OPS plus, like those types of things. But so I don't necessarily go to data too much because I literally watch every single game. I don't miss. I really could probably count on one hand how many innings I missed all year.
you.
And that's one of the runners in scoring position is one of those things. I mean, I remember back, I think it was until this third Atlanta game. I mean, I told my wife, I was like, I can't remember the last time they had strung 2 hits together, like just 2 hits.
Mm-hmm.
And then certainly when they, the last time when they had gotten runners in scoring position. And so that's something that, as you mentioned, obviously it's being talked about more that they're struggling with. And so like I'm on Fangraphs right now, from July 1st, so the 22nd of June was the Wander Day. So let's do, they played the Royals. And then I think they went out west. Yeah, because I remember the last week of June was when I had my surgery, and they were playing out in Arizona. So I'll be kind to them, and I'll include the 28th and 29th because I know that they had some big hits in that series with runners in scoring position. So I'll just do the 28th of June because from July 1st, they're 29th in baseball in average with runners in scoring position. So the 28th, I'm even, like I said, being a little kinder and trying to give them a boost with some of the games they had in Arizona. They are 24th in baseball with a 243 average. Your first place team is the Baltimore Orioles with a 338 average. And the Dodgers in Atlanta are second and third. And the Rays are 24th. And then if you go back to July 1st, which is, the July swoon, right? They're 29th in all of baseball with a 208 average. The only team worse than them is the San Francisco Giants, who are hitting 183, which that sounds awful. And I think I'm not as familiar with the NL wildcard situation, but I know that they have been playing well lately. So I'm sure that's been fun for them to endure. But I mean, they've had with runners in scoring position, which you don't necessarily need to hit a home run with runners in scoring position, but they've got 3 home runs total.
It would help.
It would help.
It would help.
And they have struck out 31 times and walked only 10, one intentional walk. So, and they've also grounded into 6 double plays. So like, they're just not getting any production on runners in scoring position. And I know that that's something that I think, just not being so into the numbers, you would think just on the, as you think about runners in scoring position, yes, it's a skill, but it's almost kind of a luck thing. I mean, you could lean more towards it being just like, okay, hey, the ball's just not bouncing our way with runners in scoring position. And they've had some really hard hits. I mean, some of the balls that they put in play, especially I think Thursday night, maybe Saturday night, Luke Raley had that line drive. I think it was Saturday. They had come back and he had this line drive. They've had other balls that they've hit that just, the Urias made a great play on a Brandon Lau grounder Thursday night, I think. Just not getting these bounces to go away. And so there's some luck involved with that. But I think that's the stat, batting, what did I say? 208 with runners in scoring position in the month of July. You're not going to win baseball games doing that. And, obviously you're seeing the Orioles, 30 batting 345. So I will say, and one other thing about the games this weekend, I feel like there's a lot that we could talk about. I think for the Orioles, the biggest takeaway I had, and I even felt this way before today's game, which he had a great game, so it makes my point even stronger. But Adley Rutschman is, I think the stats show, since he came up last year, that he came up and debuted against the Rays. I think the Rays beat him in his debut, and then the next day they were able to get a win. And from that point on, I mean, I think they're on like a 90+ win pace. I think 93 or 94 win team since his debut. And so I think Adley Rutschman is going to give the Orioles a great foundation. I think just his presence on the team, the way he controls the pitching staff, his presence in the lineup, like he's just a great player. And I think you can point to him coming up, kind of change the trajectory of that team.
Yeah.
But for the Orioles, so he gives them the great foundation, but Gunnar Henderson,
I was just about to say his name, man.
Is going to take them to another level if he is really this good all the time. Because I would have killed to had a guy on the Rays that cared about this series as much as Gunnar Henderson did. Because I cannot tell you how many times I felt like Gunnar Henderson, making big plays, doing the little things.
Yeah.
And just the emotion he was showing. I mean, he was giving 120%. And then we got Rays have guys, like Randy out there on Thursday loafing it out to get a ball. And you see a guy like Gunnar Henderson taking advantage of that and getting third base. And that truly, like, that literally led to all those runs being scored in the fourth inning against Tyler Glasnow. Because
I tell you one thing. I don't want to face them. I don't want to face them in the playoffs. Like their bullpen.
Yeah. Their bullpen's
is
great.
Disgustingly good. And
Yeah.
Felix Bautista he should be in the running for Cy Young. I mean, I know closers have done it before. The dude is a monster. And I do not want to face him in the playoffs if we get there. Like that's lights out. He's almost like that caliber, like a Mariano Rivera, where when he's coming in, you're done because of the stuff that he has. And we saw him pretty much all this week. During that 4-game series, and it's like there's no answer for him. There's none. They don't have one right now for him.
Yeah, no, he's incredible. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, I always thought like, okay, well, especially this year, I think people were surprised, thought the Orioles might take. It was great the run they made towards the playoffs last year. They didn't quite get there. They didn't make any moves. So okay, yeah, they probably might do the same this year. Maybe take a step forward. Could sneak into the playoffs. I think. Their strong bullpen was always a reason for that because they can shorten games, to 6 or 7 innings. Kind of like when the Yankees had Aroldis Chapman back when he was really good, and they had, Loizaga and Betances, and I don't know if Loizaga was back then, but like Betances and Chapman and those guys. Like I remember, feeling like, man, if you're not winning by the 6th, if you're still down a run going into the 6th or 7th, like you're just. You got an uphill battle because they can just shut you down. And that's the same with the Orioles. But man, I was just so disappointed with and I'm not saying the Rays don't care or the Rays players didn't hustle at time. And everybody they're running, they're trying their best. Like I'm not claiming that. It felt like from the jump from that play that Gunnar Henderson made when Randy threw the ball in. And I will say it wasn't all Randy's fault. I think Taylor Walls has some of the blame there. I'd probably put it at like 15 or 20% of the blame, whereas Randy, he says he lobbed it in because he wasn't sure who he was throwing it to. But there was he loafed it. He took it for granted, and Gunnar Henderson made a pay. But between that play, between the hustle single today, and it was a tough play for Brandon, but him just hustling and beating out that single to lead off the game today that led to the run being scored because Adley hit a double.
Yeah.
Between he makes that great play at third yesterday against Brandon Lau where he catches the line drive and then he's firing it to first base, and that's not even his position. He's a shortstop.
Right.
I mean, he's a shortstop by trade, but you got Jorge Mateo, who's great too. So they push him to third and he's out there diving, throwing, just on making baseball plays. It was really, really impressive. And honestly, like I felt like, the energy that they showed I felt like just much more. It was a very tangible difference than what I felt like we were getting out of the Rays dugout. Not saying that the Rays don't care, not saying that the Rays didn't try, but they just, and this goes also to Brandon Hyde, the manager, who I think is a great manager. Based off what's happening this year, I'm sure he'll probably win Manager of the Year at this point. And I'm sure, we'll see sustained success from there on out. I think like someone like Kevin Cash has proven obviously, I mean, we're like year 5 or 6 now that the Rays are probably going to be a 90
Yeah.
win team, or I don't know. They didn't have 9 wins last year, but in the playoffs, like he's able to keep it going. We'll see what Brandon Hyde does. Obviously, he's going to have great talent there, but I don't know if you listen to the TV broadcasters much when you're watching the games, or if you do the radio or just following on the line, but Brian Anderson and Dwayne, they were talking on about. They kept commenting about how aggressive Brandon Hyde was, not almost in a way of like they weren't really sure. Like it was just strange to them that he was managing in a certain way. And I'll tell you, it was evident from the first game that Brandon Hyde and the Orioles came in feeling like this was the biggest series of the season so far.
I would definitely agree with his managing style. You're going into a 4-game series.
Yes.
You're going into a 4-game series tied for the top spot. I'm going to be as aggressive as possible going against a team that's kind of struggling right now.
Yeah.
So if I'm surprised BA and Dwayne were kind of just like, why? This is very like I'm surprised that they would think that way because, as a manager, especially with a big series coming up, I'm going to do whatever it takes to either win 3 or sweep the whole thing. Like
right.
If I'm like, to me, if I'm Kevin Cash, I'd be doing the same thing. And it just didn't seem that way. It just seemed that they weren't even aggressive at all when it came to
yeah. And they threw Pete out there a bunch, which was great. I know he didn't come through yesterday and had that bloop single to Adam Frazier. Like
he did good on Friday.
Yeah, he did good on Friday, and he held the ninth down for us on Thursday, and like so it wasn't that Kevin Cash's normal thing where all right, we're not chasing leads or anything, but it was and I don't think that the Rays didn't think this was a big series necessarily. I'm not saying that. I just from the Rays, all we hear is about, hey, it's we'll come back tomorrow, we're gonna do the same stuff. It's it's July.
Yeah.
It's just baseball. Like we're going to come in. Like it felt like the Orioles, and I don't know what they were saying in their interviews after the game. I'm not reading the local journalism there, but it was evident that they came in thinking we're going to be super. Brian BA said this day, he was treating it like a playoff series. Well, yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He knows how important it is for his team. I think they've always kind of had it out for the Rays because of how they beat them. Was it 16-1 that one year, or 17-1, 18-1 back in 2021?
Drew, it also seems to me it's like they came in prepared and the Rays didn't seem prepared whatsoever for this.
Well, they made some dumb mistakes. Jose Siri getting, Kevin said, I don't know if he was covering for him or not. Kevin Cash didn't say it in the press conference that day, but Jose Siri clearly forgetting there were 2 out, or there was only 1 out. Like he broke, but he was saying that there was a kind of a tweener ball, but I think it was evident that he forgot there was just 1 out.
Right.
Randy's and Taylor, to a certain extent, their lack of concentration, lack of urgency on that play in the 4th on Thursday night. And so I think Brandon Lau getting picked off is tough. And I know it's a tough play, it was a great play by Gunnar Henderson, but like we can't afford to lose base runners that way. Wander getting picked off on the second, going to second yesterday after, trying to keep the rally going. I don't know, like just making dumb mistakes in my opinion, but it was evident from game 1. They came out and said, okay, I mean, because it was tied, the Rays tied it up. I don't remember how the first game played out. It was tied going into the 9th inning, right? Did Yandy scored? Okay, yeah. It's coming back to me now. I'm sorry. I'm thinking. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I'm just trying to go off memory. Yandy hits a 2-run single to get off of Cano, which was great. I mean, honestly, he killed us last time we played him. So they get the 2-run signal. They tie it up. They can't quite get the other runs across. I think in the 8th inning, they had an opportunity to do something and couldn't get the big hit.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to the 9th, tied up. Pete Fairbanks does his job. They bring in Felix Bautista in the 9th, right? I literally tell my wife when they bring him in, I was like, listen, they're going to they're going to bring him in for the ninth and shut it down. And then because I was telling my wife, I was like, they're super aggressive with Cano and Batista. They lean on them a lot. And I'll get to that. That's another thing I want to talk about. But they're going to go to Batista in the ninth, which they did. And I was like, and I'll tell you what, if they don't win it here, they're going to go into the extra innings and they're going to try their best to get a lead. And they're going to bring Batista back out because they know that we can't hit them. You know, so like they're going to be super aggressive. They're not going to wait for the game to come. Like he's going to go. Brandon Hyde said, I'm going to put Batista in, shut him down in the ninth, and I'm going to play small ball as the away team. And on the broadcast, they were like, that's kind of strange. You don't usually see that from the away team. Well, he knows that he's just got to get one run across, and they play. And that's another thing. The Orioles did small ball great. They did all, between the top of the 10th where they bunted, they got the runner over. And then Stevenson, 0-2 to Kowser, I think, can't get, or I don't know if that was Saturday, but they get the run across on the top of the 10th, and sure enough, they bring Bautista back out. Like that to me was a very clear sign that Brandon Hyde thought this series, we're not screwing around.
Right.
Like I don't care if Bautista, like we're leaning on our guys, our horses to get the win. And that was all that mattered, was getting that win. And they did. And then Friday, they got shut out. Rays did great. Pitching was great. Saturday was the same thing. I mean, all he wanted to do was, they bunted Frazier over in the ninth against Pete with no out. Like you would never see that from the Rays, but they know, like, hey, listen, they ran Cano out there on Saturday too. They know that Bautista is their guy and he's going to shut him down. So they're going to do whatever they can. They're going to be super aggressive in trying to just to get one run across. And, and it worked out great. I mean, there's times where that doesn't work out, and yeah, it looks bad, but like it worked out great. And I just thought it was very evident from the jump that the Orioles, this series to them, and I know Kevin, ran Pete out there 3 days in a row. I didn't love Pete's pitch selection to Rhino Hearn, 3 sliders or whatever, a bunch of whatever it is, a slider or curveball, but like he ran him out there and like, but it just felt different. Like the Orioles were approaching it from a different level of aggressiveness. And I'll tell you what, like people will say, okay, well, they're up 2 games. Well, I mean, newsflash, they are actually, so they're up 4 games in the loss column. So that's 4 games we can't get back. So they have the same amount of wins. So the Rays have played more games. So they're up 4 games in the loss column. And then on top of that, we have to, I think the Rays, the season series is 6-3 right now.
Right.
So we don't play them that much anymore.
We don't play them till September.
Till September. I will actually be there for 2 of those games.
Okay.
My family and I we're going up to Baltimore, so I'm very excited about that. Although I'm starting to dread it.
Just looking at it though, I mean, we got to win these next 2 against Miami.
Yeah,
and then after the Thursday game, I was like, all right, it's a bad loss. It was sloppy. Let's go into the Friday and win this one. They did. I was like, okay, they look good on Friday. Let's hopefully salvage another win and split it, because I'd be okay with a split.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're still like sharing the top spot at the AL East after a split, I think. But just the losing to the 1-run games is the most frustrating point.
Yep.
And the thing is too, after you talked about the O's manager, Kevin Cash was outmanaged through the whole, even though the one when they got out of the series, he was just outmanaged by Baltimore's manager.
Yeah.
And I said this last year, and I got kind of crucified for it too. I'm at to the point where, and there's a small contingency of people that maybe kind of agree with me. There comes a point. This is probably going to open up another can of worms, Drew, about what I'm about to say. There comes a point where, when the manager, you have the man. Look, I know he's won 2 Manager of the Year awards. It's great. He's got us through the World Series, got us through the postseason. But there comes a point where you might need to make a change, especially after this year too. And depending on how the season ends, if I will give him a pass for 1 more year if they go deep into the playoffs. But if they get bounced in the first round, then you maybe need to start to look at your manager and go, okay, we're not getting there with you. We've given you the keys to the castle. We've given you the players that we can afford. We gave you the best lineup, best rotation that we got this year. Obviously, injuries have been an issue as well again. But this might have been a sign to me that, man, you got outmanaged 3 out of the 4 games in this big series. You didn't look prepared at all. Your team didn't look prepared. Depending how the season goes, you might have to put him on the hot seat. You might have to put Kevin Cash on the hot seat.
Yeah, I mean,
look,
I don't
guys
know.
have gotten fired for less.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, it's a controversial subject because he's been such a great manager, but when the World Series title has been in the grasp, and it just hasn't been done. And I think this is going to sound nitpicky with him. It's just, I know I just took us on a different path on this show.
Yeah, you're fine.
After he yanked Blake Snell, I was kind of like, okay, you're relying too much on the analytics and not baseball. I don't know if I can trust you as a manager anymore.
Right. I'm not there at all really on Kevin. I mean, he frustrates me from time to time because I get as a fan, I get emotional,
right.
Whether just I try not to be that person. I try not to let it affect my emotions, but I'll get frustrated or I'll get angry, especially like just, internally, just like, oh man, I'll watch Kevin Cash's postgame just hoping he's finally going to
show emotion, and he doesn't.
He's fine. Yeah, he's finally going to be like, yeah, we look terrible. We're playing like crap. Guys got to play better. Like kind of some of the stuff you see from other managers.
Just canned responses.
Oh yeah, and that's his thing. And I know, like I'm looking for something that's never going to be there.
Honestly, Drew, sometimes I think he's AI. He's an AI. An AI like made up manager that has those canned responses like, hey, this is what you need to say for the post game.
Yeah, but after some time, like I feel like more often than not that it always comes back and you hear how even when things are going bad, the players love how just even keel he is. And then you see guys like Aaron Boone or other managers that just seem to always, like John Schneider and stuff, like guy, and I'm grateful for Kevin Cash's demeanor, because then when something like that, when something happens, the very few times that does, right? Like when Brasso gets thrown at by Chapman, in 2020, or, when he starts yelling at umpires or gets ejected for stuff, like it since I feel like it means it's all that more meaningful. I tend to think
because it means he's human and he actually can feel something.
Yeah, I think that in the moments where things are going bad, fans, including myself, I'm certainly not, excluding myself from this, can be really reactionary. And I would say that most players, if not all players that have played for the Rays, have pointed to Kevin Cash's even keeledness, if that's even a way to describe it, as a strength for him, as a strength for the team. So, and I also think that in my opinion, I think he's one of the better managers in baseball. Like, I don't know what the Rays would bring. I don't know who the Rays would have come up behind him that would have as much, if not better, success, at least on a regular season basis. I'm not saying, who knows, some guy could come in and maybe win a World Series. I don't know, but I think from season to season, I think he's going to end up having more wins than Joe Madden. I think that the Rays probably extend him. Honestly, I think he's got one more year left after this year. I think they're probably going and extend him and just keep him there. I mean, he's, Tampa guy.
Yeah.
I think the players love him, and obviously he's really settled in here. But one other thing about the Orioles leads, I mean, let's face it, the Rays going into Baltimore, no matter what happens between now and that series in September, they have to sweep the Orioles in Baltimore in order to win the season series. So let's just say that's probably not going to happen, right? I mean, we can every game that the Orioles and Rays have played has been close. The Orioles had not beaten the Rays by more than 2 runs all year. I mean, you look at the season series thus far. Rays won 3-0, Orioles 4-2, Orioles 2-1, Orioles 8-6, Rays 7-2. Orioles fourth. I mean, even this 4-game series, they won 1-run game.
1-run games, yeah. It's
Yeah,
been the
two
killer,
1-run
man.
games and then a 2-run game, and
Yeah.
that's because their bullpen's so good. You know,
Yeah.
I mean that tracks, right? They're really good in 1-run games because when they get 1-run leads, they can throw out Cano and Bautista, and no one can hit them. However, that you see that 2-game lead, it's effectively a 3-game lead because if we're tied with them at the end of the year, it doesn't matter. We're going to be below them. So you can look at, that's why I was frustrated by some of the what seemed to be a lack of urgency on the players' part at times, and a lack of concentration because this is July, but this is series 3 of 4 with this team that you're going to be battling probably for the rest of the year. And if they would have won 3 of 4, excuse me, the Rays win Shane's start and they come in and somehow pull out today's start, then now they only have to win 1 game, they can split the series in Baltimore, and they're going to be having the tiebreaker over Baltimore. Or if we just split the series here, then we just have to win 3 out of 4 in Baltimore, which not easy, but certainly a lot more possible than winning 4 against a playoff team. So it's just frustrating because now you're looking essentially at a 3-game lead for the Orioles, and it felt like the Orioles knew what was at stake and they played like it.
Lots of things can happen as we're going to wrap up the show. Trade deadline's coming up. You never know what they can do. I mean, obviously there were some reports came out today. I tweeted you this before the show. Blake Snell and Josh Hader are available for the Padres. They're on the trading block. Pretty much everybody on the Cardinals is available. So teams are making it known that they're going to take phone calls. So I think it just all depends on the types of moves the Rays make to better the team, and I think they need a lot. We do have a comment. The O's are going to get better, in my opinion, after the deadline, which is probably true. They're going to make the moves that they need to make to make them better as well. Like every single one of the teams in the AL East are going to be making significant moves to better themselves because it's such a tight race right now. I mean, like it's nuts how, the AL East is all 5 of the teams. Like you can even say the Yankees could be a top team in any one of the other divisions right now. So the Warriors are going to make their moves. The Rays have got to make moves and smarter ones to make themselves better at the deadline. So
I think if you see the Orioles get a starting pitcher, I think it could be anybody. It doesn't even have to be like the splashiest starting pitcher, but if it was even somebody like Jack Flaherty or Jordan Montgomery or somebody like that,
Michael Lorenzen,
I think you're going to start seeing a lot of talk about the Orioles and being World Series contenders, and they're going to have a lot of the hype train behind them. And I mean, they've earned it. I also think, I don't know how much is too much, but I mean, what's to stop them from going out and getting another reliever? I know they went and got Fujinami, which honestly, he was the Rays' best friend this week. I mean, who's to say they don't go out and get another big reliever and just have 3 or 4 guys that can they can shorten the game even more. So I don't know how I feel about the deadline. I mean, I feel like I almost part of me doesn't want the Rays to go out and make the
you don't want them to make the big splash?
No, it's not that I don't want them to. I mean, if they got Ohtani, for example, that would be awesome, right? And it wouldn't even matter. Like all would be forgiven as long as, it would just be so exciting.
Drew, I think honestly, I'm gonna, even if they did go and get Ohtani, that to me doesn't make them the favorites because the way they've been playing. Well, if they go and get Ohtani, to me they're still second. They're second place to the Orioles.
I think that it's more about they just need to get some sort of spark to the offense, because some of these guys, I mean, they can hit. It's not that they can't hit. It's not like we're running out Steven Souza and other guys from 2017, Logan Morrison, or we've got guys that can hit the ball. It's just they need a spark. And so, I mean, obviously Otani would give them a spark. I'm just saying, in
Give
my
me Jack
mind,
Flaherty, give me Paul Goldschmidt. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Get a
yes,
package deal to get those two guys coming over. I'm fine with that.
Part of me was like, if they make a splash, like a really splashy move, I almost hate that it would be coming at a time where it's like we're trying to, like, it's almost, I don't want to say panic mode, because I don't think the front office is panicking, but like as a way to
like an
stop the ship from sinking,
like almost like an act of desperation that they're making this type move.
I would like an act, like, and that's not the Rays, and so then I think that, okay, that makes it even less likely that they would do something like that, because they're not reactionary in that way.
Yeah.
I think, like, I don't remember exactly, but when they got Nelson Cruz in July, I mean, the team, they weren't like fully in control of the division at that point. I know that didn't happen till, like, I think beginning of August, but they were in an upward trajectory. Things were going well.
Yeah.
They had that rough June. They lost like 7 or 8 in a row, and then Wander came up, and then they started putting it together really well after the All-Star break, and then they got Nelson Cruz. So it's like, okay, like, I wish if the Rays were like still cruising, but they had some holes, I'd be like, yeah, let's go do it. Like, let's just add on even more, and really go for it. So I don't know if they end up, who knows? They could do a number of things.
Plus, you never know what's going to happen in a week or so. It's coming up. So whatever could happen in the next week after we play the Marlins and we play the Astros and then the Yankees, a lot can happen. We could see a total flip of the team within a week where it's back on track, and then heading into the deadline, it's okay. Let's just add more. Let's just add the pieces that we need to get over the hump. Instead of having an act of desperation where, okay, we're just going to go all in and get whoever the hell we need.
My biggest concern is that they go out and get a Michael Lorenzen, or some people throw out Lance Lynn. I really hope they do not go. Then I don't think they will. But as an example, like, they go out and get somebody like that, and people are, oh man, okay, like, here we go. And it just that to me is not something that's really going to make a meaningful difference, in my opinion. It's not going to provide the spark that they need.
Right.
I think that, because I mean, at this point, they got to shake it up somehow. Like,
I agree.
For a while, it was they're exhausted. They need the All-Star break. It can't come soon enough. Well, the All-Star break came, and now it's gone. And now it's like, oh well, they played 8 games in 7 days, or they played, like, they're just tired. Like, these 2 days off are going to be great this week. It's like, okay, at some point, like, guys, we can't blame them being tired. Like, they're just not producing. And I don't care what the analytics show like, oh yeah, Brandon Lau's walking more. He's really seen the ball. He put some good good at bats together. Like, guys are having better at bats. It's like, well, that's great, but we're still not winning ball games. So you got to shake it up. I mean, personally, I would love to see Curtis Mead come up, and if they don't want to go out and get a splashy bat acquisition, like, I think someone like bringing someone up like Curtis Mead would be great. People would have a conniption about who would be replaced, because apparently we're the only team in the world that can't replace a single offensive guy. Like, the idea of replacing a single bench guy with one of our top prospects just sends us into a tailspin.
Well, Kyle just said Jordan Montgomery would be the favorite of his to target, and then trade or DFA Margot or Harold and bring up Mead.
Yeah, I don't think that they can DFA Margot, especially
he's under contract.
With his contract. He's looked terrible. But he plays center field, and it's great. Harold Ramirez is always the easy choice, but I don't know. They got to bring. I think they needed to bring Mead up, but they're not going to go out and get a bat from outside. I think you got to give Mead a shot. I mean, he's crushing it. They were, Jeff Passan reported they were wanting to sign it. They were looking at signing him to a long-term deal before the season started, and he had that fracture, that wrist injury, I think. He's coming back better than ever. You got to shake it up. Like, you got to do something. Walls is out now.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, well, you can't send Walls down because who would play shortstop? I mean,
we got plenty of guys
between the guys on the bench that we have, we cannot. I realize that some guys, like, it would be hard to say, yeah, let's get rid of Harold or let's send down, somebody, but like, we've got to shake it up. There's got to be something that has to be done, whether via trade or, some of these guys in AAA that can come up and hey, see if they can provide a spark. I mean, you're seeing it around the league. I mean, I'm not saying any of the guys coming up are going to be Ellie De La Cruz, but I mean, literally took the Reds from like nothing to they're filling out the stadium now to a guy like
in playoff mode
Sal
right now.
and South. I think Frelick, I might be saying his last name wrong, for the Brewers last night, debuts for the Brewers. He's, a top 50 prospect, and he makes some great plays and has a hit. He goes like 3 for 3, makes some great plays in the field. They win a big game and, just provide a huge spark for that team. And now, they're on the upswing. They won a series against the Braves. Like, they just need somebody to come in, because right now the team has constructed, I don't know, I get that they're putting the work in. It's not working right now. And and also just on a less analytical perspective, like Wander and Randy got a hit. They got to hit better. Wander's hitting below 200. I think you said, right, for the month of July. What was somebody commented that to us? So
Rosarena was hitting 200, and I think
and
Wander's
he's
hitting like one.
There's no power. Like, there's no. I mean, I know Wander had a double the other night, but like, there's just not.
There's no consistency with him.
He had a line drive out, but like, there's not driving the ball. Like, I'm not. Every at bat, I feel like he's getting pitched on the outside of the plate, and he's just pulling it into the ground, into the right side of the infield. So I don't know what's going on. I know they talked about him. This is the first time he's really struggled. It's a learning experience. He's still 22. I get it. But like, hey man, you are the guy. So you got to figure it out. Because if he doesn't figure it out, they're not going to go very far. And I mean, don't look now, but the Rays are only 3.5 up in the wild card against the Astros. So
and Toronto's knocking on the door too.
And Toronto's a game, 4.5. So I mean, they are 6.5 games out of playoff contention.
Yep.
So I mean, if we have a bad series against Houston and New York, I'm going to tell you right now, we're on the fringes of being a playoff team at that point. So it's July, but they got to do something's got to change, because it can't just be the same thing over and over. I will say I'll wrap. I know we're wrapping it up, but ending on an optimistic note. As bad as the last month has been, I do think that our starting pitching, and the bullpen's been a lot better. I mean, give the credit where credit's due. I mean, I know Pete had a rough game in Texas. They, blew the lead. The home run against Poche today was crap. I mean, it was a fluke home run. I mean, none of the stuff that happened against the bullpen this weekend, I don't look at it and think, oh, here we go again. Like, I think, you could say Pete didn't do his job the other night. That's fair. I don't think that the bullpen's a mess right now. I think they're playing really well from a bigger picture standpoint. But the starting pitching and the bullpen, I think right now, are going to be what keep this team as a playoff team. So I'm not worried about not being a playoff team, because I think our floor is a lot higher than other teams because of our starting pitching. But we got to bridge the gap between Bradley and the fifth starter. That's got to happen. And they got to shake up the lineup somehow, whether through a trade or through bringing up Mead and hoping that somebody can give this team some energy, because right now there's just not that energy and that fun, that lightheartedness that we were seeing early on. So,
well, we'll see what happens in the next week and a half or so as the trade deadline comes up. We'll see if the Rays are smart enough to make those types of moves. Maybe Drew could be the general manager next year if that happens. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, thanks everybody for joining in on the comments. Thanks, Kyle, for joining in for a matinee or a nightly version of the Rays Rewind podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Rays Rewind Pod and at the YouTube channel, which you've seen this broadcast as well. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. You can catch us on our next episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, and you can hear the replay on Believe.com and Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Play. For myself and Drew, we'll see you guys next time on the Rays Rewind podcast. See ya.